Hi, this is Mick Presnell, and this is a continuation of Chapter 2 of Baronet text, and I'm going to talk today about intention and extension. Notice these are terms that are used with an S and not a T, so it's spelled a little differently than you might be familiar with. So let's take a look at term, use, and mention before we get into the intention and extension, because I think it helps kind of clarify some things. Right, a term is a single word or group of words that can be the subject of a statement. So, for instance, I could say that a term is Bob in the sentence. Bob is going to the store. But the term would also be Bob, who is my second cousin and who lives in New Jersey, is going to the store. That entire first phrase would serve as a term because it plays the function of the subject of that sentence. So even though it's not just one word, it nonetheless would be considered a term. Now, the use of a word, in the example here, I will vote for her because she has outlined a clear strategy for economic recovery. So I'm just using the word because I'm giving an explanation for my reasons for my choice here. Mention is when I actually refer to the word itself. The word because is a good premise indicator. So here, notice the term is in quote marks. This is very often the convention used in writing to identify a word as being mentioned rather than being used. So here, the quote marks do not mean that somebody has said this. It means that the word is being mentioned rather than just used. Okay, now let's get to the section here on intention and extension themselves. All right, let's see. Here we go. A word can have two different types of meaning here. So whether when we're using a word or where we're mentioning a word, we can talk about it as having two different types of meaning. Well, at least two, intention and extension. So intention, that is referring to the list of characteristics of what that word is talking about. So in the case of automobile, so we take this as a term, automobile. The intention of the automobile, the word automobile, what is the characteristics of the objects in this class or type of thing that's being talked about. So an automobile has the characteristics of being a passenger vehicle, powered by an engine, used for travel, etc. The extension of the term is the class or type of object that it refers to. So, and specifically the members of that class or type. So this would include all automobiles. So as we'll see when we talk about logic, if I say automobiles have wheels, that's implied here that automobiles in this case, the term automobile, does refer to the class or type of object that includes all of automobiles, all of the items that are part of that class or object. That's its extension. If I want to say what gets an object placed in that category, what counts as an automobile, well, I would say it's those things that have the characteristics or the intention of things like being a passenger vehicle powered by an engine, etc. That's what gets these particular members of the type included as that type, are the intentions. So the intentions determine what objects go into the class. In other words, they determine the extension. All right, so now intention then has more attributes if you increase the intention with each successive term. So here's an example of increasing intention: mammal, bovine, cow, and Bessie. All right, so in this case, we start out with mammal, which is a fairly abstract term. So if you started saying, well, how many characteristics of mammal are there? not members. Now, how many things are mammals, but what are the characteristics of mammal? Because that's what intension means. What are their characteristics? Well, mammals are warm-blooded. Females produce milk. They give live birth, etc. So relatively small number of characteristics that define that abstract term mammal. So bovine, what's a bovine? Well, a bovine is a mammal, so it includes all of those characteristics, but then it also includes other kinds of characteristics, having cloven hooves and this and that. So it has some other additional characteristics, so it has more, increasing intention. Cow, well now, yeah, a cow is a mammal, a cow is a bovine, but now it's got more additional characteristics that make it a cow. And Bessie, oh well, Bessie, I mean, Bessie is just quite a character. So Bessie has all kinds of characteristics that we can talk about. So very rich description by the time you get down to actual perceptual objects, starting from the class, which has characteristics that define that class, maybe a relatively small number of things like warm-blooded, etc., all the way down to the rich experience of my buddy Bessie, who's the actual cow. In the mammal, human, New Yorker, George, same kind of process. Mammal, same general characteristics that, after all, is shared by, Bessie. I mean, but human, okay, well, that's a type of mammal that is a little more specific. New Yorker, well, there's different people. There's different human beings. I mean, human beings in San Francisco are not the same as in New York, in say L.A. or Chicago, etc. Not the same kind of thing at all as a New Yorker. George, well, that's a very specific New Yorker. So here you have the more specific individual you're talking about, the richer the description. In other words, the larger number of intentions, the larger number of attributes that you can talk about. So increasing extension, right, where you include more members in each set of objects or classification from left to right. Here you have the opposite direction. Bessie, how many objects or members of that classification are there? Well, there's one. If I'm talking about Bessie, a particular cow I know, there's only one Bessie, just like there's only one George. So here we have a set or a class of objects that has one object in it, that individual. And as we'll see, that's kind of a peculiar case here when we talk about classes and sets of objects in dealing with logic, is that when you have proper names, you're essentially talking about a class of objects that has one member in it, that particular individual. So Bessie, and then we go to cow as the next increase in extension. Well, there's lots of cows. Bovine, there's a lot more bovines than there are cows. Cows, after all, is just one type of bovine. There's also water buffalo and all kinds of things that are bovine. Mammal, tons of different kinds of mammals besides just bovines. So as you move from Bessie to cow to bovine to mammal, you have larger and larger numbers of members in those classes or sets. Same thing with George. George, New Yorker, human, mammal. Greater number of elements, greater number of members in that class. So increasing in intention, we have an increase in the different kinds of attributes or characteristics that define each of these things from left to right. Increasing extension, we have a greater number of members of individuals in each set, moving from Bessie and George, a member of one in that set, to mammal in both of these cases. So that is a little bit of a preview here of intension and extension, and we will be talking about classes of objects quite extensively in Chapter 4 that will be coming up.